Welcome to Love with Francesca, where we deep dive into relationships, self-love, and the empowering journey to authentic connection and healing. Today, we're going to chat about, well, I'm going to chat about how to move from the problem to the solution. And I know that might sound a little bit abstract. You're like, what are we talking about? But I'm going to make it very, very practical, very, very tangible for you to walk out of it here being like, oh, okay, I see what I'm possibly doing wrong and what I could be doing instead to create the relationships that I want. Just thinking about a lot of clients that I work with, and this is what I'm going to share with you today is a concept that I explain so often in my coaching sessions. I think at least once a week I'm explaining this. So I figured, why not just make a little video about it so that people can just watch this and, apply it to themselves and so that it can become something that's useful for you as well. When I'm when I meet with someone and they initially start telling me, what's going on and whatnot, they don't usually tell me like, hey, this is what I'd like. How do I get there? They usually come and they tell me, my partner and I got into a fight. He did the same thing that he always does. I felt criticized. I ended up yelling. We ended up not talking to each other for 2 days. It was miserable, the whole thing. Or my son's being disrespectful again. I told him that he needed to take care of the stuff. He's not doing it. He slammed the door. Now I'm trying to deal with my other kids that are feeling like what he's doing is unfair. Or Francesca, my mom's super overbearing. I keep trying to set boundaries with her. She just barges in. She does whatever she wants. She invades my space. I've tried telling her, and it's just not working. What do I do? And notice how in each of these examples that I've given you, what the person is communicating to me is the problem. They're so focused on the problem. They're so focused on the other person in their life that's acting in a way and how this other person's behavior is creating an emotional struggle for the person telling me the story. So when we focus our entire narrative on the problem, and our entire focus is on the problem and how to fix the problem, what we're typically doing is trying to figure out how do I fix this other person so that I can feel better. And the thing is, if you're so focused on fixing someone else, you're actually going to end up recreating. I say this giggling, but not to minimize, but just because it's just like something that I giggle at because it's something that I learned for myself. And, we're so unaware of these things when we're doing them. But what we actually end up doing is recreating the same exact problem. And we're not doing it on purpose. We're not trying to recreate the same problem. We actually really want the problem to change. We want the other person to change. We want our mom to be less invasive. We want our son to respect us. We want our other children to feel like the discipline that we're enforcing on each kid is fair and equitable. We want our partner to walk into the room and love us and, be joyful. But the problem is that we're not focusing on the things that we want. We're just focusing on the problem that is happening. And so by focusing on the problem and by focusing on the other person, we're focusing on what we cannot control. We cannot control other people. The sooner we accept that, the better our lives will be. Once you realize that the only thing that you can control is you, yourself, your behaviors, your thoughts, your actions, your beliefs, what you choose to wear today, I think you get the gist of it. The only thing that you can control is you. So focus on what you can control because that's where you get to connect to your real source of power and your real source of influence. By turning inwards, by refocusing your attention inwards, you're going to be able to understand the way in which you play a role and the way in which you have a responsibility in this dynamic. And it's a hard thing to do and it's uncomfortable and we really don't want to do it. And I totally understand why it's not fun. However, when we do focus inwards and we try and understand what am I doing that is creating or co-creating this pattern and this dynamic with this person, then you can change the way in which you handle the situation. And naturally, the dynamic with this person is going to change. The scary part is that you don't know how it's going to change. You don't know if, say, you're playing tug of war with someone. You're pulling at the rope, they're pulling at the rope, you're pulling at the rope, and you're just in this like back and forth, like power struggle with them. Say you realize that you don't want to keep pulling at this rope with them. You don't want to keep having this argument, being in this conflict with them. You're like, you know what? I'm out. Do whatever you want to do. I just don't want to keep arguing with you. What you don't know is whether or not this person then is going to choose to be like, oh, you don't want to play either? Oh, I actually didn't want to play either. Let's figure out a better way to figure this out. Amazing. That's like best case scenario. They might take the rope and whack you with it. That's gonna suck. I mean that metaphorically, not literally, but that's gonna suck. But there are people that do that. You drop the rope, you say, I don't want to have this conversation with you, and now they're offended. Now they're withdrawing their energy from you. Now they're giving you the silent treatment. Now they're telling you that you're just super sensitive and you just need to, deal with it and you need to be nicer and you need to be more understanding and you just don't get it. It's whatever. I'm sure you know that you've had people in your life have give you these kinds of responses. So that's more of like the retaliation, right? Or the person might take the rope and be like, "Oh, you don't want to play? Guess what? I'm actually out. Like I'm out of this relationship. I no longer want to be in this relationship with you." So that's the scary part, is that when we focus on what we can control, we're also admitting that we cannot control those other things and we're letting go. And it's scary to let go because you can no longer try and impose what it is that you want around you. The thing is, you actually could never make you actually could never get what you want by imposing it on others. When we're holding on to something so tightly, we're not the second we're living in fear that the second that we let go even just a little bit, it's going to slip out of our hands completely. So do you really ever have that thing if you're holding on so tightly? Probably not. What's much better is to be like, you know what? I'm going to let go a little bit and I'm going to see if it stays. And if it stays, it was meant to be. It was meant for me. And if it doesn't stay, it wasn't meant for me. I'm going to keep acknowledging that all these things are really hard. I know they're really hard, but they also work. And I've seen massive changes in the women that I work with when they truly let go of what they can't control and they start to focus on what they can control. They start to focus on the power and influence that they do have in their lives. They start to change the way in which they treat themselves. And by nature, they start to attract people that treat them better. They start to build self-trust with themselves, and automatically they attract people that are more trustworthy, or the dynamic in their relationship becomes a dynamic that's more trusting, that they don't have to hold on so tightly to it. They can just trust that it's meant for them. They can trust that if they let go a little bit, the person's going to meet them halfway. The person's going to take a step forward to satisfy their needs because they care and because they're able and willing to do that. That's why I would love to say, like, oh, here's the strategy to like get your partner to be nice to you. But it would literally be false advertisement. If you're watching anyone's content and they're telling you this is the solution to this, false advertisement. Like, honestly, I just have to say that because there's no way to control the other people around us. You can try so hard, you can try for so many years, but you're always going to feel that fear and that like, oh God, I have to keep controlling and I have to keep holding on and I can't let go. And that's just going to continue generating so much fear and so much stress and so much anxiety. Why do we have to work so hard at having a relationship? Isn't it just supposed to work for us? Isn't the other person supposed to meet us halfway? They are supposed to meet us halfway, but if you keep holding on so tightly, it's going to be so hard for them to meet you halfway. They're going to feel so suffocated. So it's just one example. There's other examples of why, these strategies might not work. And at the end of the day, even if you do hold on so tightly and you do have a person that's like always in your life and always checking in on you, that feeling that you can't trust and relax, it's always going to be there. And you're always going to live in fear that this person's going to leave you, or you're going to, they're not going to be there for you one day, or you're going to end up by yourself. That fear is never going to go away. So instead of exerting our control outwards, which is temporary, it's a short-term solution, let's focus on creating a healthier set of beliefs and a healthier way of looking at life and handling our relationships and how we feel about our relationships, because that's going to create the long-term change. It's much harder. It's like saying, instead of like yo-yo dieting and trying all these new cool diets, let's create like healthy routines that create long-term change. Let's start drinking more water. Let's start walking more and eating just a little bit healthier. It's much harder to do, but it's way more effective. Okay, so now that I've rambled on about how important this all is, just so that maybe I render the idea clear, let's focus back on what to do in terms of going from problem to solution. Once you've realized that you're super, super focused on the problem, once you've understood that you need to detach from the problem, focus inwards, focus on yourself, focus on your own role and responsibility, I want you to take it a step further. And I want you to think about, okay, what is it that I don't like? What is it that I'm feeling? And if I go even deeper, what is that feeling telling me? What is the need that is not getting met right now in this relationship? For now, just focus on one specific relationship and one specific problem within this relationship for the sake of this exercise. And then you can repeat this exercise on every other problem in every other relationship, but take it one at a time. Okay, so once we've identified what don't I like, what's happening that I don't like, what's the feeling that's coming up, what is this feeling communicating to me? What is it telling me? What need of mine isn't getting met? And once I've identified that need, I don't want you to eliminate that need. Okay, because this is what I used to do. I used to think, oh, okay, so, well, I need attention. Well, that's it. I just won't need attention. Like that's the solution. I just need to keep this person in my life, and in order to keep them in my life, I need to just not need this thing. Not the solution. We have needs, they're important. We all have human basic needs of being heard, of being seen, and of being loved. I'll add also of being understood. That's a really big one. So once we've acknowledged those needs and we've acknowledged that they're going to be there forever, we can't just get rid of them, and we shouldn't, right? We shouldn't try and get rid of them. We would just be repressing a part of ourselves. We would be actively emotionally injuring ourselves. As we acknowledge that we need them, let's now focus on the solution. Great. The solution is that I need this need to get met. That's my solution. Okay, amazing. So now let's focus on how can that need get met? What are the infinite ways in which that need can get met? I'm going to go off the example of needing attention. So we all need attention. It's just a thing. If it's hard for you to accept that of yourself, I would encourage you to take some time to reflect on that and give yourself the permission to admit that we all need attention, because we do. It's just a human basic way of connecting and being nurtured. We are social creatures. We need attention. We need socialization. We need connection. Once I've been able to acknowledge that, I've understood that what I am seeking is connection with somebody else, or just connection, excuse me. If what I'm seeking is connection, then let me try and figure out what are the infinite ways in which I can receive connection. Let's start with, how can I create connection between me and me? Maybe this issue that I'm having with my partner where I'm feeling neglected is also showing me where I'm neglecting myself. What are the ways in which I'm not showing up for myself, in which I'm not taking care of myself, in which I'm not listening to myself? Maybe I'm someone, myself, if I can, just use that as an example, but if it's helpful, I used to be super, super, super busy all the time. And I'm not talking about like running around town being busy. Like I could even be home on the couch, but I would be busy. I would be on Instagram. I would be scrolling. I would be watching a TV show and also reading about a new recipe, like super, super busy. I was very rarely calm, quiet listening to myself and really paying attention to what it is that I was needing and how to nurture those needs in that moment. And so the times in which I didn't feel heard by people in my life, or I didn't feel like they were really taking the time to listen to me and care about me, I would get super, super angry at them. And through reflection, like the ones that I'm encouraging you to do, I discovered that the anger that I was feeling at them was actually just showing me where I was also neglecting myself. I was also ignoring all these feelings that I had repressed and parts of me that I had just like shut out and been like, nope, you're bad, can't pay attention to you, can't give you the love and affection, nothing, you're bad. And so I had to learn how to take care of myself. I had to learn how to nurture myself and how to look at these sides of myself and be loving towards them. And as I was able to do that, I felt much better. I understood what I needed, what I wanted, and how to satisfy that need. And then I was able to communicate that to the people around me. So once you've identified what it is that you need and you've understood how to get that need met for yourself, because there's infinite ways in which we can get a need met. I will go into that in a second. Then we communicate that to the person in our life. For example, if I need to be celebrated, I want to be supported. I want to be celebrated. That's important to me that the people in my life show up for me when things are going well. I may want to be celebrated in a very different way than you may want to be celebrated. You may want to be celebrated by your partner taking you out to a nice dinner, or by your partner simply writing like a little sticky note and putting it on your desk and being like, I love you, you're the effing best, whatever. You may want to be celebrated by your partner coming home with flowers, or just remembering that that day was important to you and acknowledging that. There's infinite ways of being celebrated. I didn't even mention all of them. You could do a surprise party, whatever, you get the point. So if you want to get celebrated, you need to figure out, how do I like to get celebrated? So I realized about myself that I really like celebrating myself through very small little gestures, like, buying myself like $15 flowers from the grocery store when I go grocery shopping. Or actually, this beautiful water bottle here that says #proud on it, if you can see that. For those of you listening on Spotify, I'm just showing my little water bottle that I bought myself a few years ago that I also engraved, and it says #proud on it, because I was able to accomplish something. I was able to stay consistent at a goal that I had for 6 months. And so this $20 water bottle was more than good enough for me to celebrate myself. I don't need like a fancy big thing every time. Once I was able to identify that, then I'm able to communicate that to the people in my life that maybe aren't currently showing up for me in the way that I need them to show up for me. And I can start telling them, hey, this is what I'd really like from you. This would be really great for me if you could do this. Would you be willing to do this? Is this something that you're open to? So at that point, notice how now I'm focusing on the solution. I'm no longer attacking them for what they're doing wrong. I'm actually giving them an instructional manual, a long word, an instruction. I've been saying it wrong this whole time. An instruction manual on how to show up for me. Because I'm going to share with you something that it took me years to figure out, and I hope this saves you a ton of time in your journey. But actually, the people that are in your life want to show up for you. They probably are just doing it in a way that doesn't allow you to receive it in the way that they're meaning it. Most people in our lives want to please us. They want to make us happy. They want to show us that they love us. But if they're speaking Chinese and I only understand German, they're going to keep speaking to me. I'm going to keep being like, I don't understand you. And then they're going to start screaming, and then I'm going to start screaming, and we don't even realize it. But now we're just fighting and we're in conflict and nothing has been resolved. So I'm not saying that you have to go learn a completely different language. That's not the point. But you do need to learn what your love language is. And you do need to figure out what it is that satisfies you and makes you happy and nurtures you. And then go and communicate that to other people and give them specifics. Tell them specifically what it is that you like. If you tell someone, hey, I'd like to be celebrated, And then they show up and they buy like a big, beautiful card for you and these flowers and all these things. And you're like, no, that's not how I like to be celebrated. Why didn't you celebrate me the way that I like to be celebrated? It's like, well, did you tell them how you like to be celebrated? I kind of want to challenge you a little bit, the same way that I challenge my clients with a lot of love. I want to challenge you a little bit. Did you tell them how you wanted to be celebrated? Because maybe the way in which they're showing up for you is the best way that they know how. Maybe. Think about it. Try out this exercise. Keep it very, very simple. Only focus on one specific situation at a time. And if you need any help, message me. I actually want to let you know something really exciting that I am going to be launching soon. And by the time this episode comes out, that event is already going to be organized and it's going to be happening within a week. This episode is going to be coming out January 23rd. January 28th, I'm going to be hosting the first monthly workshop for our community. It is going to be very active in terms of participation. It's not going to be one of those like boring webinars that you show up and you're like, oh my God, why am I listening to like a 45-minute explanation of your life and then a 25-minute explanation where you're pitching your program to me? I don't know if you've been to those. Personally, I really don't love those, as you can tell by the way that I just described it. But this is going to be a much more interactive workshop. What I really want to do is give you an opportunity to get coached by me, get to know the community, where I can help you with the specific problems that you're dealing with so that we can really like get into the nitty-gritty and you can walk out feeling much more clear about, like I said today, move out of the problem, move into the solution. So you can be much more clear about what is a potential solution. My intention is to help you feel much more inspired and motivated to start acting in alignment with that solution that you want to get to. And also just feeling like you're not alone in all of this. I mean, I spent years going to individual therapy that I loved so much. I still have my same therapist. He's the freaking best thing that ever happened to me. But it's always a little bit isolating when you're just doing like one-to-one with someone else, or even worse, if you're just in your head with all these problems and insecurities that you're having, it feels so isolating. And that's why I wanted to do a group event so that you can meet the other women that are in this community and you can listen to some of the things that they say and you can just feel less alone and be like, oh my God, I'm not the only one that like panics about this or feels super insecure about this or like keeps reading about boundaries online, but I have no idea how to set them, or I feel like I'm doing it all wrong. Like there's a whole community out there that is here to support you. And so I just want to invite you to come meet them. And the event is free. You can participate at no cost, no commitment, nothing. Come join us. It's going to be January 28th. I'm going to invite you to sign up for our email newsletter just so that you can get all the updates and information and get the link so that you can register for the event. It's going to be on Zoom. It's going to be online. But if you can't make it, a recording is going to be available. And I would still recommend that you watch it so that you can still have those experiences that I talked about. You might not get coached live by me, but you will definitely learn a lot from the other women that join the event. I really hope to see you there. Like I said, if you listen to this and you're like, great, I got the theory, I'm having a hard time applying it, come to the event. That's a perfect time for me to walk through this process with you and help you do it and implement it into the exact dynamics and relationships that you're struggling with right now. With that being said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. We drop episodes every Thursday, so tune in weekly. And if you want to join our community, you can find us on Instagram at Love with Francesca, or you can follow the pod on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. I will see you next week.